Hi, my name is Daniela Duque, and for my presentation, I'll be talking about the four main issues seen in lifespan developmental psychology. So, what are the four main issues seen in lifespan developmental psychology? The four main issues seen here are the arguments of nature versus nurture, continuity versus discontinuity, active versus passive, and stability versus change. When discussing the human lifespan, psychology, and how our brains develop over time, these issues have posed in this field some of the more heavily debated questions. So, in nature versus nurture, we can ask ourselves why we are the way we are. The side of nature argues that the answer for why we are the way we are can be found in our genetics, DNA, and overall heredity. The side of nature states that our biological traits, especially the ones that have been passed down to us over time, shape our development more. The side of nurture argues that the answer for why we are the way we are can be found in our environment and communities. The side of nurture states that one's upbringing and influences are the thing that shapes our development more. With continuity versus discontinuity, we can ask ourselves, is human development gradual or a rapid process? With the side of continuity, it argues that the way we physically, emotionally, and mentally develop is slow and gradual. The side of continuity states the stages of our development are more steadfast, steady, with new skills derived from previously made skills. This continuity argues this continuity argues that the way we physically, emotionally, and mentally develop is rapid and constantly fluctuating. The side of discontinuity states that the stages of our development are vastly different from one another. With activeness versus passiveness in our development, we can ask ourselves, do we play an active or a passive role in the way that we develop? I found a good example of this in the internet, active learning versus passive learning. With active learning, say you're in a social studies or a civics class and you're learning about the US Constitution. With active learning, not only would you make the connection of something basic like, yeah, the US Constitution was written in 1787. With active learning, you can make connections and patterns, and you can kind of think to yourself, like, oh, yeah, I've learned this in a different class or with a different classmate before, or you can connect what you're learning about to an older memory of learning about something similar in the same subject, stuff like that. And you can connect it to how you're feeling when you're learning about that thing. With passive learning, it's more of a there isn't as much connection and patterns being made mentally. You kind of just see the subject as for what it is. Like, oh yeah, the US Constitution that was written in 1787. That's all I got. In the side of activeness in relation to our development, it argues that our brain takes strong action in making connection and patterns with past, present, and future information as we process. In the side of continuity in relation to our development, it argues that our brain doesn't take as much action in making those connections and patterns with the past, present, and future information that we process. With stability versus change, we can ask ourselves how similar or different we are as we develop and grow older. In the side of stability in relation to our development, it represents the well-rounded pace we carry in our lives. The side of stability states that our behavior and emotional tendencies are rooted from childhood. With change, in the side of change, in relation to our development, it represents the constant change in the pace of our lives. The side of change states that our behavior and emotional tendencies are not only modified by our childhood, but more so around our surrounding environment, culture, society, the way we grew up, etc. I chose this topic because I wanted to learn more about the issues that lifespan developmental psychologists debated all these years. Psychologists have debated on which side is right in all four arguments, and have done endless search for proof to back up their claims. Although their work is conclusive, many psychologists today dismiss these arguments and aren't spending as much time trying to figure out like which side is right, like nature versus nurture, continuity versus discontinuity, etc. Claiming that both sides to these arguments are not only valid, but they're actively present and very important to our human development, regardless of what side. And these are just some of my sources. Most of it I got from the chapter 1 PDF that was in class. But yeah, that's my presentation.